Hi guys, it's Tawny and my son. Look what we're making today. What are we making, Dane?
Dumplings.
Dumplings. It's our third week of focusing on flour. So dumplings are something my grandmother used to make. You'd often put them like in soups and things like that. So right now it's about 12 o'clock noon and I'm actually going to make lunch today with some dumplings. So Dane's gonna help me. So I'm gonna set you up back here and we are gonna get started. Sorry.
That looks perfect, Mom.
That looks perfect? Okay. So what we're gonna start with is our cup of flour. So.
You mean your measuring cup.
Yep, you need your measuring cup.
It's called a measuring cup. It's not just a cup.
It's not just a cup, yeah.
Because it has measuring things all over it.
Correct. So we're gonna measure out 1 cup here. And Dane, I'm gonna do this because I'm almost out of flour. But I'll let you dump it into that bowl.
Stop.
Okay. He says stop. That's about a cup. That's perfect. Whoops.
Sorry, you guys. The thing made a loud noise. It tipped you over.
Yeah. Can you add my flour? Wait a minute. What did you do before we started here? Tell everyone.
Wash your hands.
Wash your hands. And notice that Dane is in the kitchen with me, with his parent, not in here by himself. So there you go, son. Perfect. All right. In addition to that, we need a ½ teaspoon salt. So I have my measuring cups here. Measuring spoons, excuse me. ½ teaspoon of salt. We call this stirring together our dry ingredients because all of these things are not liquid or anything like that.
They're not really some good ingredients. They're just dry.
They're just dry. So this is our ½ teaspoon of salt. Go ahead and put that in there, son. Perfect. In addition to that, we need our 2 teaspoons of baking powder. This will help our dumplings kind of puff up a little bit. So do you want to do 2 of those? And remember, there's that handy dandy little scraper that you can get it perfectly flat. There's 1. There's 2. And whoops, son, I actually gave you the ½ teaspoon, so we need 4 of those. 4 ½ teaspoons equal 2 teaspoons. Yeah. So he added 2 ½ teaspoons, so that's only 1. And I told you I needed a total of 2, so I'm gonna add in that 3 and 4. Perfect. All right. And we need just 1 teaspoon of sugar. Why sugar, you say, in dumplings? It gives it a little bit of sweetness and flavor. It's not like it's gonna be super uber sweet.
Oh. Yeah, not like donuts.
No, it's not gonna be like donuts.
Yeah.
So 1 teaspoon of sugar. Put that in there. And that is all it takes. Our flour, our baking powder, our sugar, and our salt. Those are our dry ingredients. So before we start this next part, I want you to see over here on my stove, this is how I have my lunch set up. So I have this is broth, basically just boiling in here. That came from one of these if you've seen it, or you can just use water. If you don't have these at home, that's okay. You can just use water and you can flavor it with salt and pepper and other herbs that you might have at home.
If you don't have herbs.
I also browned up some chicken, so I will add the chicken into my pot. And then this is simple enough. These are frozen vegetables. So a mix of them, they don't have to necessarily be this mix, but I like vegetables in my dumpling soup. So we're gonna add those in, okay? So Dane, I'm gonna give you a fork and you're gonna actually just mix up my dry ingredients for me. All right, that ought to do it.
Still doing it?
Nope. Now, it says we need to cut a tablespoon of salt into our dry ingredients. So what that...
Can I cut?
Yeah, once I put it in here. So if you look on your butter, you'll see that they have marked off 1 tablespoon, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We only need 1. So I'm just gonna cut it right at the 1 tablespoon.
Mom, I wanted to do it.
Well, I'm gonna cut it up into little squares. Make sure I get all of the wrapping off. My bowl butter here.
And then cut it into
little squares. Why, you ask? Because this is gonna make it easier to cut up into our mixture.
Yeah, so
Dane, can you drop those little squares in there for me, please?
We don't want them to just be little teeny tiny squares.
No. So we're going to take our fork and we're going to actually cut into it. So I'll show you how to do this. We basically want our butter mixture right now. We want it to look like little crumbs. So you use 2 forks, and the process that you're going to do is kind of smash the butter. Pull it apart, smash the butter. So it's a little hard for me to do it with the bowl turned, so I'm going to put my bowl down and I'm going to smash in that butter.
Down.
Thank you, son. Sometimes I just crisscross my forks back and forth. The butter will get smashed up into the prongs of the fork. Just use the other one to scrape it off. Keep on crumbling it. You want your butter to be kind of cold. You don't want it like rock hard frozen, but you also don't want it super soft because then it won't cut into your flour properly. The consistency that you're looking for is more of a dried crumb. So you can see, or maybe not, I don't know, but they look just like little dried crumbs, a little bit more put together than just regular flour. Okay, so next thing we're gonna do is add our last ingredient, which is the milk, and this is what will bring it to an actual dough. So I have my measuring cup. We only need a half a cup.
I'll tell you when to stop.
Okay.
I don't know what a half a cup is.
It's at the 1/2 is a half a cup. Okay.
Stop.
Go ahead and pour that in there. Make sure it goes all in the bowl. All right. And with this, I just like to use my, you remember what this thing is called?
No.
A spatula.
No, I want to stir it.
Well, let me try first, okay? Because when you're doing this, you don't want to overwork the flour, so you're just kind of pushing the flour into the milk and flipping it over, push it into the milk, flip it over, push it into the milk, flip it over. Why don't you do it a little bit?
I don't want to do it.
You don't want to do it? It's hard. Okay. So,
That looks like Rice Krispie treats.
does it? He's talking about my chicken. It's definitely not Rice Krispie. All right, guys. I'm just going to mix up our dough. And it's going to be a little sticky, or what we call wet. It just means that it's a little bit wet.
I want to do something too.
Okay.
I want to do something too, guys.
I think he hears our dog barking, which he thinks that the mailman is here, and his birthday is in 3 days, so he's super excited. All right, guys, I have my sticky dough. See that? And what we want to do is we actually want our soup or the broth or whatever you have on the stove boiling. So if that's water or salt with salt and pepper, or if that's broth, or if you've made something at home, it needs to be a liquid. You definitely don't want it to be any sort of cream or milk, because if you boil the cream or milk, it's going to separate the fats from the solids, and it's not going to be really tasty. So some sort of liquid. I'm going to grab a spoon.